The Three Domains of Freedom, a deep dive with George Kinder. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Retirement Cafe podcast with me, your host, Justin King. If you're thinking about your retirement or already retired, you're in the right place. My aim is to help you plan for and live a successful and meaningful retirement. Retirement is far more than just a financial event. It's a significant life event, a major transition, which will bring with it new challenges and opportunities. So each episode contains tips, information, and inspiration to help you feel more informed and confident about your retirement. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe podcast, and welcome back to today's guest, friend, mentor, and undoubtedly the father of the financial life planning movement, George Kinder. I first met George around 16 years ago and have followed his work closely ever since, helping deliver freedom into people's lives through the Kinder Institute of Life Planning, and his books have been an incredibly important focus for George. So I was delighted to chat with George recently about his latest book, The Three Domains of Freedom. His most recent work sets out to empower readers to experience profound freedoms in their own lives, at retirement or at any stage of life, and about bringing about positive change to our civilization as a result. I hope you enjoy my conversation with the ever-inspiring George Kinder. Welcome back to the Retirement Cafe podcast, George Kinder.
Woo! I'm so happy to be here, Justin. Great to see you. And
Great to see you.
Across the great Atlantic. I mean, often I'm over there, but gosh, it's amazing what we're able to do. Good to see you.
Well, always great to see you, George. And, you know, you've been such a mentor to me, such a great friend, such a, you know, I don't know, it must be 15, 16 years ago since we first met on your workshop that you were doing in London on the 7 Stages workshop. And I saw you, you know, kind of life plan people live in front of me. And I thought, wow, I've got to get some of that. I need some of those skills. And then, you know, I've spent many, many days under your kind of tuition and mentorship. It's just thrilling to be able to chat to you today. And of course, the mainstay of that is you've got a new book out.
I do. And it's related really in a way to what you were just describing about us meeting, and you're seeing that the work of financial life planning in front of an audience. And we don't think of it really. I mean, we think of finance as so much about the numbers and everything. I know you don't, but people do. And to see it done differently and yet work as a financial planning process, in fact, work better than any other way we can imagine it, I think is an incredible thing. So just you're describing that moment of being where your light bulb went off. I'm thrilled I was able to be there.
Yeah. Well, you definitely lit my torch, as you say, or a spark of inspiration. So your new book is The Three Domains of Freedom, and it's got some profound ideas. You very kindly let me have an early copy. Can you give the listeners just a kind of brief introduction to it, and then we can dig inside a little bit into the detail?
Sure. Well, I think it's probably worthwhile to recognize why I wrote it in a way. I mean, I think that's a really powerful question. And you framed that to me in the past. Why did I write this thing? And I think we all are. It's a common theme. I'm really upset. Is that the word? I'm really freaked out by. I'm really concerned with the craziness that we find all around ourselves. In America, you guys know it. You know, looking over at America, you go, what on earth is going on over there? But of course, you've got it in Europe, all over Europe. You've got it in the UK. And there's a craziness happening at this time when, you know, when I was a boy, I grew up really way back in the 50s. And, you know, everything was good. We'd come through the war. We'd settled everything. You know, people were in their roles, and everything was good. And now we've got this. And the image then was we were going to go to something that would be extraordinary for every human being. Democracy was part of it. Business was part of it. Being good human beings was part of it. And having succeeded in tackling what was just an incredibly horrible crisis, world crisis, was part of it, that we were up to that. We could make that happen. So to find ourselves now in another place of crisis that feels like it could be as bad as what was happening then, I got this thing in my mind. I mean, I feel like I'm just this tiny little person in a skiff on a wild, tumultuous sea, and the world is huge, and what can I do? But the thought that came up after 50 years or so of working in financial services, looking at this craziness, was not on my watch, not on my watch. And I thought, I got to do something about it. I don't know what, but I got to do something about it. Everything that I've done in my life, all of the books I've written, I think why you and I really connected, Justin, from the early get-go, is that all of my work has been about freedom. What is freedom? And this image that in life planning, that anybody can have it, everybody can have it. It's just going through the appropriate process and that delivers it. And so my thought was, let's tackle craziness, and let's do it by looking very carefully in a book that's really simple. It's profound, it's challenging intellectually and all, but it's simple, easy to read. It's an hour read, and it's filled with inspirational, profound thoughts. So you go, wow, what's that about? And could that work? And how does that work? So that was my thought, was let's put something out that stirs people up and gets us thinking, let's solve this problem. We don't deserve a crazy world, and we don't deserve a world where we can't talk to each other and where we're constantly conflicted. Let's solve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just such wonderful words, George. The 3 domains of freedom. Tell me about the 3 domains. Give us an overview of those.
Yeah. So what you're nailing it. It's the subtitle of the 3 domains of freedom that says everything, and you have to dive into each one of them individually. But the title's the 3 domains of freedom, and then the first domain is that each moment is yours. And that may be controversial. We may not know exactly what it means. I'll get into it. It's because it's pretty astonishing when you really think about it. But let me give all 3 of them first. But we kind of intuitively go, yeah, well, that kind of makes sense. I can kind of get that. What is it? But what does he really mean? And then the second one is this is the second domain of freedom, is your life is yours. And this is your and my connection over the last 16 years. Your life is yours is saying life planning is a critical domain of freedom for everybody. And if we don't claim our life, there's something missing in our experience of freedom. And then the third one is the most kind of problematic for us, and why I wrote the book in a way, although the book summarizes a lot of my work throughout my life, personally and professionally. So the third domain of freedom is civilization is yours. And there we immediately go, well, wait a minute, there's all this craziness out there. There's crazy news. I don't have any power. I speak up and someone bullies me into not speaking, and it's crazy everywhere. There's wars that we didn't anticipate happening that are happening, and we don't trust our institutions. We don't know what the truth is sometimes. How can civilization be mine? And my notion there was going back to the 50s and going back to our ideals. I think when we both grew up, I know you're a generation younger than me, maybe more, but we grew up where we were told, in some way, democracy does it. This is democracy is the future, and it's where we're headed, and freedom is where we're headed. So civilization is yours was my notion of, let's go back to those original principles, and then let's look at how we can apply them now so that we can actually experience civilization as being freedom for us, and also take on those challenges. And the end of the book, what I'm really excited about is that at the end of the book, I actually have a proposal, a single sentence legislative proposal that, if implemented, I think would bring solutions to most of the problems we feel on the planet within a generation. That means the problems with democracy, the problems with truth, the problems with the planet, the heating up of the planet. I think it would solve those problems within a generation.
Yeah. Wow. So, George, the domain one, which is domain of freedom.
Right.
So this draws heavily on your kind of Buddhist teachings and, this learning to embrace the moment, embrace this moment, this very special moment that we have now.
Right.
And, that has been a significant learning for me over the last 15 years since meeting you. But the challenge that I still have with this kind of juxtaposition of, I've become, I think, quite good in my meditative practice to be embracing this very fleeting moment, but then also challenged once the external influences kind of come to bear, or even if I start to think about a most wondrous future, that I'm also supposed to be kind of embracing this very moment. And the future is a construct.
Right.
And I'm kind of, I get a bit lost at this. Now, I may be the only one, but I've got you online. I have to ask you, when I'm letting those, the thoughts, and I'm just embracing this very quiet stillness of this wonderful time I can have a meditative practice, which even I feel then start to get challenged about, is it indulgent? Should I be doing this? Should I not, should I be not trying to serve the world or help other people? There's a whole maelstrom of things going on. And I see in the domains that you're talking about, the freedom of the moment is so important, but also how do we then have the time to construct what a better future would be like as well?
So it's a great question. You're not alone at all. In fact, it was one of the things that I had to wrestle with as I wrote the book and as I thought about the book. And it's one of the things that I've gathered, I hope, some wisdom over the years of wrestling with this question. Because as you know, my mindfulness practice is a huge part of my life. It's several hours a day. I do it and have for 50 years. So I've explored it a long time. But what I want to do to set up an answer to your question is, first of all, frame the intellectual rigor of each moment as yours. Because we go, like you're saying, well, wait a minute, and I got the life, and how do I balance and all this kind of thing. But I want to frame what this means. Each moment is yours, because we kind of know it, but we don't really think about it. And it was one of the light bulb moments for me was realizing that the only moment, I mean, it's obvious, but the only moment I've ever experienced is the present moment. That's incredible. I mean, because we frame the past and we frame the future and we use the past to go to the future. All of our academics is about that, about moving from the past to the future. Your and my profession of financial life planners is about that. looking at what we've accumulated through the past and moving to the future. But the fact is, the reality of our life is, or one reality, that the only moment we've ever experienced is the present moment. And there's a corollary to that related to freedom. And that's just obvious. And that is that the only moment we've ever experienced freedom is in the present moment. So before we even go to past and future and how do we frame all that, the truth is that if we want to have a mastery of freedom, and if we want to experience freedom in our lives on a regular basis, one of the things we need is tremendous skills around the present moment, around the experience of it. And one of the amazing things about this practice that you and I call mindfulness, and we kind of assume that the listeners know something about it, and it's become, you can Google it, it's there quite a bit these days. But one of the things that you won't find when you Google what mindfulness is what I think it really is. And that is that mindfulness is about the mastery of the present moment. So that's pretty incredible. So I've practiced for many years, and it continues even at my advanced age with my white hair, what hair I have left. I'm still learning, and my passion remains because I know that the closer I can get to that present moment, the more experiences I can have. So how does that relate to, let's say that you do that quite a bit and you get stronger and stronger at mastery of the present moment. How does that relate to our lives as we think of our lives? And that's why, the second domain is so important. We mostly think of our lives as being, you and I use the term a lot, the hero's journey. It's like, who do we want to be? And let's make sure we make it happen. And that's from the past to the future in a way. But throughout that process, we have these moments where we come back to the needing a plumber because the toilet exploded, or getting thrown out of our home, or losing our job, or having a fight with our dear one, having dissonance with our kids. There are all those things that are not quite in that trajectory, or weren't in that vision of who we wanted to be with our life. So we have to come back to the present moment. And the question is, can we deal with things in the present moment in a way that has, where we can find some peacefulness inside ourselves, so we can find some clarity to scope the whole situation, some perspective. We talk about the pause a lot in life planning. Can we find a way to pause and be here in the mastery of the present moment, so that, and one of the things you learn when you practice a mastery of the moment is you're constantly working to transform those moments where you feel stuck, you feel hooked, you don't feel free, toward a world of freedom. So one of my books is called Transforming Suffering into Wisdom. And that's a lot of the purpose of mindfulness, is to notice where we get attached, where we get aversive, where all the difficult emotions come in and we get hooked. And what mindfulness is about is, well, as soon as you notice you get hooked, you just come right back to the present moment. So you let go of that. And the stronger you get at it, the more it means that throughout your life, whether it's dealing with the big issues of civilization or the big issues of family or your life trajectory, you're able to make wise decisions, wiser decisions. Yeah. Is that helpful, Justin?
That is really helpful, George. Now, of course, in the domain 3, where you talk about the freedom of civilization, the challenge, and I think you touched on this right at the beginning, where a feeling that we can all have of insignificance, I think was the word that you used.
Right.
And, you know, I identify with that, without a doubt. And yeah, there is this aspect of, I mean, I think I've probably been guilty of this myself. Whether it's guilty is the right word, but there's so much noise that, you know, the you know, the kind of continual rhetoric of, you know, give me the grace to control the things that I can control, and the wisdom to let the you know, the things that I can't. And I'm not quoting this well, but, you know, to let the things go that I can't.
Right.
But when we look upon the world and we see such injustice, and we feel so small, there's a disempowerment, and I have this sense that with possibly the social unrest that we've experienced recently in the UK, that our masters and our institutions have significantly changed. You reference in the book, forgive me if I've got this wrong, Thomas Paine?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Now, I have to apologize. I didn't know who Thomas Paine was.
Oh, my. Well, you grew up on the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah. but now I do, because, of course, you know, I did some research and I thought, wow, you know, what a forefather, what wisdom from the 18th century this man had.
Yeah. And one of his good friends lived very close to you, who was William Blake.
Wow.
And they communicated around this stuff. Anyway, yeah.
Right. And of course, you know, so I read some of his oratory, some of his rhetoric, and you just thought, wow, what wisdom coming from the mouths. And I've had a number of other conversations recently about the statesmen of the world seem to have, you know, Nelson Mandela has passed on, you know, the Queen, you know, has now passed on, you know, and we're now, we seem to be career politicians, and companies seem to be all about the profit. And then you also mentioned John Lewis, you know, the John Lewis part. And you know, and we used to have all these mutual companies in the UK that were, you know, the building societies were built for the people of that local community, and the insurance companies, and there was a lot of Quaker organizations that and all of this, you know, seems to have just gone. And then if you're feeling insignificant and you're looking around for inspiration, and you find it difficult to find this disempowerment feeling. And I know one of the classic things that you do, and you've taught me to do with the life planning approach, is also always to be very empathetic with the people that you're working with, and go, you know, I realize this is all really, really, really tough, but what is it that you can do? Yeah. And this is where I'm hoping that, I think your book is really trying to address, is that this recognition that, you know what, it's not great, is it? and you're looking for inspiration and leadership around you, and you might struggle to find it. Yeah. But actually, whether it's in your own domain, you know, for your own life plan, or the freedom of the civilization, to what is it that we can do for our communities and for our world that actually does invigorate and have authenticity and honesty and all the other, you know, the great values that are, you know, Thomas Paine was illustrating, you know, when I read his oratory.
Boy, you know, believe it or not, I know you're talking about the insignificance, but you've just inspired me to be more active and engaged, you know, reminding me of these people. Who was John Lewis, you know? Who who was Thomas Paine? He was just this individual person, and he thought he'd write pamphlets. It's as if he was giving a retirement show once a week or once a month or whatever. And he just kept doing it, and then the circumstances arose where what he was doing could speak to people who were going to make a huge difference around the establishment of democracy. It's really, us, because, we're, I'm as British as I can be for an American. And it's like, it's our culture. And he was just saying, hey, go for it in the right way. So I think that, when you're talking to ordinary people, I'm an ordinary person, you're an ordinary person. That's why we feel insignificant, because we're 1 out of 8 billion. But the truth is that every one of us is doing something, whether we're caring for an infant daughter, or we're, out gardening in our garden and making it look beautiful, or whether we're bringing a kind smile to a person in the street, that whether we know them or we don't, we're bringing something into civilization that's good, and it makes a difference. And we don't really know that, and that's why we feel insignificant. And part of the reason I wrote this third part is that it's because of that feeling of insignificance that we end up having what the psychologists call a codependent relationship with these large institutions, where they're powerful. I'm looking to them to see, how, a leader, as you were saying, where's the leadership, rather than going, I'm it. And every act of kindness I do is bringing an environment of freedom into the world. Every time I'm thoughtful, every time I quiet down my own kind of intensity to be able to listen, I'm adding something to the world. So one of the purposes of writing that section was to attempt to remind everybody that we're all part of civilization. Civilization is who we are as a species. And yes, we may be just 1 out of 8 billion, but we're contacting all these other people. And it passes along. There are now studies of how happiness is infectious, contagious. And so you're acting with courage is contagious. You're reminding me of Nelson Mandela and Thomas Paine and John Lewis. Just inspired me. Just recalling who they are. It's contagious. So I don't know if I'm saying this well, but so part of this civilization is yours is we're already doing it, and you're doing it in spades, Justin. I mean, you've written a book that's really a phenomenal book on retirement, bringing in all kinds of people from your environment to talk with them and inspire people further. You have this radio show this podcast that brings in people, and where you have a serious conversation with them. I can't tell you how few, I've been interviewed hundreds of times over the last few years, how few really serious conversations there have been. You do it. Right. So you're doing it, other people are doing it in their own way. And then what I do at the end of that chapter is I say, yeah, and as you were saying a minute ago, the world's in a sorry place. There's a lot of craziness out there, and there's a lot of people suffering. I mean, just look at the misery in Ukraine. Just, how many hours distance from where you are right now. I mean, just the misery that's over there that shouldn't be happening. And obviously the misery in terribly poor countries with famine, with poverty, with dictatorships, with guns. And so I take the last part of that chapter and I go, yeah, we're all contributing in a wonderful way. Keep doing it. Celebrate it, understand it, and celebrate other people. Everybody's doing it, and we're all doing a good job. But then there are these problems. How do we tackle them? And what I came up with was something, and it was partly came out of the life planning understanding, that if we inspire a vision that we all agree to, it's much easier to make it happen. So rather than thinking, and if it's a holistic vision, rather than like in finance, it used to be, well, are you taking care of your debt and you just focus on the debt? And, do you know how to invest and you just focus on the investment? But you and I know that that's best done if there's a whole vision, a holistic vision, a vision where people go, I'm inspired, I want to make this happen. And then that's easy. Budgeting's easy, saving's easy, doing your work is easy. And you realize that instead of it being a slog, you're feeling the vigor of it and the vitality of it because you're going where you're meant to go. So what I do at the end of this very thin, really simple, it's almost like a beach reading for the summer, is that I have crafted a single sentence legislative proposal that's really simple, that addresses how our institutional life is failing us. So it's back to, where's the leadership? Well, we're the leaders. And the best thing for us to do is to challenge, create movement, agreement amongst ourselves as to what the vision is. And then challenge not the authorities, but the institutions. Bring kindness to people, but speak truth to power, is kind of the image. And the legislative proposal, I mean, it brings up the obvious things like truth, democracy, the planet, and humanity. And it's like every institution, how did we ever set up a limited liability freedom to capitalize, have enormous debt if we need it, have enormous media power without also saying to them, hey, yeah, but you got to make sure that you don't undermine democracy, or you don't slant the truth. You got to speak the truth all the time. If we're going to give you this kind of power, you got to have a humane understanding inside yourselves. You don't violate the planet. And so I'm just writing that into law, that for every corporation, nonprofit, and government, that they're required to place the truth, democracy, the planet, and humanity ahead of their own self-interest. Perfect. Simple. I think I got where you were aiming me, but
that's brilliant, George. No, it is brilliant, and I think gosh, if we can, and this can be influential in that in conversations within these organizations that I don't know. I feel that I feel that they need to start adulting. So many are run like a teenager, and yes, there isn't this feeling of honesty and truth and the planet and people and all the. It is very a short-termism kind of view, and they need to grow up. But coming back to the individual. What would you like for people listening to this podcast who are mostly retired or approaching retirement? And, one of the unique opportunities I always try and impress is that retirement is quite a renaissance. It's quite an amazing opportunity of time, because not only have you got the vigor and the energy, you've possibly got the resources, financial resources maybe, to really apply your wisdom gained over 50 years of whatever career choice that you've had. And you may now have this unique time with huge experience to actually apply it, and apply it possibly not for, and I'm not decrying it, but not it possibly doesn't have to be for financial reward. There's not often in your life where you can really embrace doing things for not financial reward. Plenty of people do throughout their lives. I absolutely agree with that, charitable work, etc. But for an awful lot of people, they're trying to pay the bills, they're trying to buy a home, they're trying to get their children to school, whatever it may be, and they donate their time and resources and their energies to that, and I admire that. But the unique opportunity retirees have is that often that they may have created enough resources, financial resources, and just experience and knowledge that they can bring to the world now to possibly have a significant impact on the organizations and the institutions around us. What with that knowledge of we may be communicating with that demographic of our audience, what words of wisdom or words of encouragement can you give them?
Well, again, I want to applaud you, Justin, because you just inspired me again, and just to see how you have developed inside yourself an understanding of what retirement is in a really refreshing and profoundly inspiring way. What is it that we can do that will make the world a better place, really? And I think that all three domains of freedom are helpful. So if you're retired and you don't feel like you're living, the life that you really want to live, get life planned and make sure that you are, and that you're pursuing it at the very least. And a lot of your energy is going into that. And I think it's very helpful if you can tolerate the sitting for 20 minutes and returning to the breath. And it's a challenge for all of us to do it, because you'll find that you actually will master the present moment more, and you'll have more peace that's not just financial and time of life and all of that, but more mastery of it, which is incredible. But then coming to this piece of what can you do? I mean, we all want to give back, isn't that? We do. It's an amazing time of life where we actually can think a little bit and think about, are there ways we can give back? And for sure, to maximize whatever you're doing. And in terms of what we're just talking about now, about this insignificance that we feel, the people you're talking about, the retired people, they have the potential to be the leaders, to be the mentors, to be the change agents that make this happen, because they've got sufficient time to be on a committee, to be part of a community and to start talking about it and about these kinds of things. So I look at what it is that you're doing right now, but oh gosh, please read the last chapter of the book and think about this fiduciary in all things. That's what I call this legislative proposal. Think about bringing that out more, because I think we can change the whole world in a generation. And I'm willing to come. Give me a call if you got an event or whatever, or at least get zoomed in. But what I'm trying to do is to create enough of a groundswell where we all say, this is crazy, and there is an alternative. I realize it's going to take a while to get that alternative going, but create that groundswell, create that movement. And then, where I'm at right now, Justin, actually, is I'm beginning to look at who could help me put together a conference. Because when I've talked with podcasters and people I've been interviewed by, and I've said, hey, what if we did a conference just looking at fiduciary in all things and transforming civilization with this? What do you think? And every single one of them has said, let me know when it's happening. I want to come. So can we find the institution, the advisory community? It could be, I don't know where it is. It could be the Rotary. Where is it that we can gather a day and bring in some leaders from academics, from economics, from finance, from business, from community, from family. Bring them in and go, what would this be like if we did this? And help make the vision stronger and begin to look at, how do we implement? How do we make it happen? I don't know if I'm quite nailing what you're looking for, but that's what I do. I'd go at it, man. You are free, and let's make the world a great place.
Yeah. Yeah. Wise words, as always, George. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Where can people get the book? I know I got it on a Kindle straight away, so I could read it immediately. But so obviously Amazon's got it. Where else can you get it?
I think Amazon is a great place to get it, because we can now get these kind of things instantaneously, and as you say, you can do it with Kindle as well. And if you're curious about more stuff about it, georgekinder.com has kind of all of my thought leadership And kinderinstitute.com really focuses on the life planning aspect.
Yeah. And if you fancy getting a life plan yourself, of course, yes, you can find yourself a registered life planner who's been trained by either George or his organization, the Kinder Institute. And these are a different type of financial planner who won't just be focusing on your money, but will be focusing actually primarily on your life and having your money support your life. So once again, thank you so much, George, for chatting with me this afternoon. I really, really appreciated your time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Justin.
A heartfelt thank you to George for taking the time to join me today. You can find links to George's books, website, and the Kinder Institute of Life Planning in the show notes wherever you've listened to this episode. I hope you found this episode interesting and helpful. If you have, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It really does help more people like you find us. And for more interviews and retirement planning videos, you may want to check out my YouTube channel. Just search for The Retirement Cafe with Justin King, or you can click on the link in the show notes. To get in touch with feedback or guest ideas, you can reach me on hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. So until next time, I'm Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.